Hi, my name is Janelle and you're watching Everyday Jane, and today I am making chocolate fudge cake, perfect for any special occasion, but especially Valentine's Day. We've got a lot of steps here, so let's get started. So I'm going to use a stand mixer today. You don't have to, you can definitely just use 2 large bowls. I'm gonna start with separating my dry and wet ingredients. So we're gonna start with some flour. So 2 cups of all-purpose flour going into my bowl here. Next, 1/3 cup of Dutch processed cocoa powder. So we're going to be using Dutch process here just because the flavor is a little bit more intense, but you can absolutely use natural cocoa powder. In this bowl here, we have 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. So that's all going in. And I'm just gonna mix all of these together. Perfect. Now I set this aside. We're gonna work here in our stand mixer and we're gonna start with our wet ingredients. So firstly, we're gonna work on the main fat components here, which is going to be the olive oil. A lot of recipes choose some sort of neutral, non-flavored oil, but I don't mind the olive oil flavor here. I'm a big fan. So I'm measuring out 1/3 cup of olive oil here. Into the bowl it goes. Next, we've got 2 large eggs. And we're also going to put in 1/2 cup of sour cream. This is one of the components that is going to make this chocolate cake just so moist. It is though, so delicious. Next, we're going to use 1 cup of buttermilk, and I didn't buy buttermilk, I just used normal regular milk and just, soured it with a bit of vinegar. So you can definitely do that at home as well. Gets all curdly and gross, but that's exactly what you want. All right, and let's see, what else do we need? We need 1 cup of warm, strong coffee. So I've got a cup here, pouring that right into this mixture. It's not so hot that it's gonna cook the eggs, so don't worry about that. Make sure it's got a second to cool down there. And we're gonna let this mix just until everything comes together. I've got my bowl here, and then we'll do half, and then we will mix it and then do half again. Half goes in. Start it low and then increase your speed. So we're gonna scrape it down with a spatula, get all the way to the bottom of the bowl. That's often where you find there's still ingredients unmixed. All right. All right, so now we're gonna mix for another maybe 30 seconds to a minute. We don't wanna over mix the cake, but we do still want to build a little bit of gluten, but not a ton, obviously. We're gonna have a tender cake here. And guess what, folks? This is what happens with day-to-day baking. Sometimes you forget an ingredient. I'm really lucky that I didn't bake this off yet. So what I forgot was the sugar, such a crucial element. 1 1/4 cup of sugar should have gone in with the dry ingredients when we mix that together first. So I'm just gonna put it in now, and we'll whiz it together and no one will be the wiser. So I've got 3 prepared 6-inch cake pans here, and by prepared I mean I greased it with a little bit of olive oil and put some parchment paper at the bottom. And I've also got my weighing scale here because I want to make sure that I divide the batter evenly. And start weighing. So I've got my filled cake pans here. They're about 415, 420 for each of them. And I'm gonna put them in a preheated 350-degree oven on convection, and we're gonna leave it in there for 28 to 30 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean, and then we've got some cake. So another part of what makes this chocolate cake so good is that we add a little bit of a difference in texture, right? So it's not just like soft frosting, soft cake. We've got a cookie crumble component to this cake. It is so good and it's so easy as well. So in a medium bowl, you're going to add 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. So I already have that in my bowl here. To this bowl, just a few easy ingredients. So 3 tablespoons of Dutch processed cocoa powder. We're not gonna forget our sugar this time. 1/4 cup and a tablespoon of sugar. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, just to really amp up the chocolate and add that balance. And lastly, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of melted butter. And that's it, folks. We're gonna make sure this is well mixed together. Thinking a tablespoon will be more than enough just to bring it together. Okay, so now that you've got this sort of crumbly cookie texture, we're going to put it in a baking dish. You can use whatever baking sheet you want. Line it with some parchment, put in the cookie crumble. So it's okay if it's a little messy because it's supposed to be a nice cookie crumble as a final product. And this goes in for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's nice and crisp. So you can put that in right with your cake layers if you're doing this step at the same time. Okay, so this is exciting. We are on to our fudge frosting, and it's all gonna come together in a medium saucepan under low heat. So I've already melted 1 cup of unsalted butter right in our bowl here, and we're just going to add all the rest of the ingredients. So we're gonna add about 1.5 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips, or 270 grams approximately, and that goes right into our saucepan. And we're going to add some sugar as well, 3/4 cup. We'll also add some sour cream. This is 1/3 cup of sour cream. In addition to the sour cream, we're adding 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. Next, we'll add the cocoa powder, and that will be 1/4 cup. And let's stir all of this together. As soon as you start to see that chocolate melting, we can actually turn off the heat and just leave it be. So I'm gonna turn off my stove top here and just wait. Allow the warm ingredients to melt that cocoa. And while that is melting, I'm going to add some vanilla. So about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. That's going to just make the chocolate sing, and a pinch of, or a little more than a pinch of salt, and that's about 1/8 teaspoon of salt if you want. So let's wait about 30 seconds. So as you can see, this chocolate fudge frosting is perfectly melted together. It's mixed in really well, and it's got this really luxurious consistency. And you might be wondering, why is it so runny? And that's because it is still a bit warm. So we need to make sure this cools completely. And you could do this by leaving it at room temperature for a while, or by letting it chill in the fridge until it is the right consistency for frosting a cake. So I'm gonna pour this into a bowl, so that'll just speed up that cooling down process. All right, so now we're at the part that is my absolute favorite. It's building the cakes. Our cake layers came out really awesome. They are super moist and really bouncy. I've actually cut the tops off of these cakes just so that they are even right at the top. And I've also prepared our chocolate cookie crumbs. And these guys came out of the oven nice and toasty. So what you can see is some pieces are a little bit more crumbly like sand, but then we've got bigger chunks as well, and that's perfectly fine. And lastly, but definitely not least, our chocolate fudge frosting. So this is something that we made over the stove, and then we didn't beat with beaters or anything, right? It's meant to be thick, luscious, and perfect for this cake. So I'm gonna take my first layer of perfect cake, and I'm gonna put it right on my cake stand. I don't have a turntable here or a cake turner. What do you call that? I don't know. But if you've got one, use it. I've got some parchment here just to make it as clean as possible, just 3 pieces on the outside of this cake. And what we're gonna use here is my cookie scoop. You guys know I love this tool, and we're going to use it so that we can measure out and make sure each of the cake layers have the perfect amount of frosting. So I'm gonna go in with 3 scoops of frosting in between each layer. And I'm going to take my offset mini spatula here, what a great tool for cake decorating, and I'm just gonna go right ahead and push it out. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of, it doesn't have to be perfect, a slight raised edge on the outside like a pizza crust to fill with our cookies. So I'm gonna take a 1/4 cup of cookie crumble with every layer here. So this is 1/3, so yeah, that's about 1/4. I'm just going to sprinkle it on inside, and this is going to give a really awesome difference in texture. So I'm just gonna spread that out so that we've got an even layer, and then the next layer. All right, so our last layer is gonna go on top, and I'm actually gonna flip it so that we get the really clean edge of the cake right at the top. Look at this cake. All right, this is a good time to kind of take a look, make sure it's even. A couple of scoops right on the top. I'm gonna do 5 actually. 2, 5 scoops, because I'm going to work on frosting the top of this, but I'm gonna use the excess frosting to kind of go down the sides of the cake, so to start to spill over. So once it does, and you've got a good thickness at the top that you're looking for of frosting, you can start smoothing it out. Now I'm gonna start using my spatula to add more icing along the sides of the cake. So now that you've got this cake covered in frosting, it looks a little messy now, but that's the beauty of a home-baked cake, is that it doesn't have to look perfect. So you just kind of do a little swoosh. Some people use it with a spoon as well. I'm just using my offset spatula because I've already got it. So you just make little swooshes in random directions, and just over to the sides, little swooshes. I always have to remember to go opposite directions here and there. Okay, so when you're happy with all of these swooshes around your cake, it's time to do the last finishing touch, which is just add a few more of these cookie crumbs to the base of the cake. So I'm gonna go ahead and get like a tablespoon of cookie crumb and just kind of toss it onto the cake. And just toss it on, and it should adhere pretty easily. You can tap it on if you'd like. Super fun, super simple decorations. Sort of my thing. Nice and easy. I think that's a good amount of cookie crumble at the bottom, and when you're happy with that, it's time to remove this parchment paper. It is time to taste our cake. It is looking amazing. Let's give it a try here. Wow. So that cake, firstly, the actual cake layers are so moist, and because of what we used, the sour cream, the buttermilk, the oil, all of that is gonna keep this cake moist for days. That fudgy frosting is just out of this world. It is so good. And then those cookie crumbs, it's exactly what you need to kind of break up the texture of this cake. You should try this. I know my Valentine is going to love it, but you should make it for Valentine's Day or any other occasion for that matter. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.